Episode 100.
100. How do we get this far, Jimmy?
100. Over 2 years of podcasting, triple digits. I know it's a little bit more because we've had so many.
That's a lot of counting.
We had the exclusive series for Riding the Pine, and we've had bonus episodes before, but we're going to talk about all of that. This is, honestly, it's one of the first questions, but I guess we can, before we get into all that, at FEOTV Pod, all social medias, this is Far End of the Bench with Jimmy Pilato, Niko Bryant, episode 100.
Wearing the original shirt.
Hopefully, like the people who have that shirt are going to be very happy with themselves in a few years because things have been going great, and we have you guys to thank for that. So for episode 100, we're going to take a slight look back. Because obviously we're still going. It's not like episode 100 and we can. Okay, we're good. Bye.
Yeah, we're not done.
We're just gonna take a little jaunt. We've already done the podcast where we kind of explain how we started the show and how we came up with the name. So we're just gonna look back. I pulled out a few of my favorite moments of the 100 episodes, and I'm sure you have yours as well. But we'll start the guests that we've had on the show. We had your dad, Mark Bryant, and Chris Birdman Anderson. Our first guest on the show, and also our first world champion on the show.
It's funny listening back to that. I really want to interview him again because
I do too.
It's kind of funny, like listening to that. I'm like, we were so.
We had no idea
what we were doing.
No clue what was going on, and I think he knew.
Oh, he absolutely did. He absolutely did.
And I think your dad is the one that pretty much carried that entire interview. So shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Bryant. But that was. Fun, and we got to learn that Birdman was a bully to you when you were a kid.
Oh, I knew that my whole life.
Oh, you knew that, but
my whole life. What do you think? I was his little brother basically for most of my life.
That is true. And for those of you who haven't listened, go back and listen to the full episode with Birdman and Mr. B. But they were playing. Niko and Chris and his younger brother were playing. Baseball.
Home run derby. Funny enough, home run derby is next week. But yeah, home run derby basically in the backyard, and me and Brock are hitting dingers off him, and he gets pissed off and starts throwing the tennis ball as hard as he can against the garage.
This is NBA Chris Anderson, right?
Yeah, prime Denver Nuggets Chris Anderson. Me and Brock are trying to swing this jack juiced up bat tennis balls to a neighbor's yard, and and my mom had to come out. Hey, what are you doing out here? He's like. Chris is throwing his hard pitches. We're trying to swing him because he's going to hurt you. He's like, he's not hitting us.
Yes.
And if you haven't heard the whole story, I highly recommend going back and listening to the whole story because it's a lot of those small little stories like that in there.
Yeah, and talk about a guy who had a hell of a journey in his entire professional career. And like I mentioned, first world champion that we interviewed on the show because then we turn around and followed Birdman up with Luis Vasquez, Super Bowl champion with the Denver Broncos during Super Bowl 50. And that was cool for me specifically because obviously he's a guy that played the position I played in football for a long time at the highest of levels, the highest of levels. I remember when we traded for Louis.
We signed Louis
when we signed for him when he went into free agency. The big thing about him was he hadn't committed a penalty in over 2 years. He had played absolutely perfect offensive line football, no sacks. I can't even remember a sack that he really gave up by himself in his career. But Luis Vasquez was an awesome interview.
He came right in when Peyton was here. Like he was the guy that Peyton looked at. He was like, I need this guy.
Well, they don't win Super Bowl 50. They don't get to Super Bowl 48. They don't set all those offensive records. And we talked about it with him too. The best team that he was on in Denver was 2012. That was the year of the overtime and the coldest game of all time, possibly.
Well, I froze my tips off my fingers. Yeah, that year with Jacoby Jones, I think it is, or Jacoby something over the top over.
I think it was Jacoby Jones was that receiver.
Like that. I remember
that was Ray Lewis's swan song year too.
We would have smoked the 49ers too.
It would have
but yeah, no, that was by far one of the best teams. Louis had so many great stories in that one, and he's an All-Pro for a reason. He's doing great in Texas too. He's starting to coach too now.
Yep.
He's training some athletes, some high school athletes in Texas, trying to do that as well. So he was a great interview.
Yeah, and I think the big thing about both those guys that we talked to, and you can go back and listen to them. It's a little bit, you got to scroll a little ways because
it's around 100.
Yeah, we've been doing this for long enough that you got to scroll a little bit of ways. But those guys, they didn't have the full-on support structure that you would think that it takes to get to the level that they got to. But they had enough in their lives, and they were able to kind of manufacture everything that they needed. And it was just, both of them had stories of perseverance. So those were our first two, and we followed that up with another NFL player, Kendrick Green, I played with him in China, and he's the current center for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sorry, Kendrick.
Yeah. Hopefully he can continue taking or giving good old Mitchie two sticks up back there.
All of a sudden he becomes
with gloves.
He becomes the guy in the equation with experience because he went from being the rookie center taking over for Marquise Pouncey, who, despite all his faults, was a very, very solid offensive lineman.
One of the best offensive linemen in the league.
Yes. And would also back you up in a fight. We learned that the hard way too. But he replaces Marquise Pouncey, and then he has Ben Roethlisberger in his 18th, 19th, 20th year and 14th allegation against him, coming up and playing with him. Now he's got to either try and get Mitch through a full season, or Kenny Pickett.
Gloves behind you, sitting in between your ass cheeks. So it's Kendrick Green. Hopefully he's still doing well with the Steelers and still going. That was a great interview. I loved every second of that one too.
He was talking about personalities. That guy was the biggest person. When we went to China, he was the show. Everybody came to watch the Team USA games. One, because we were beating up on these European and countries that had no business playing against us.
Business playing football.
Japan, Canada, and Mexico are the only teams that I say should have been in contention for a quote-unquote world championship. But they would come out because they wanted to see Kendrick with he's a big guy.
And a massive human being. You don't get that. You don't get to the NFL with being a little tiny.
He's strong too. Like he doesn't have like a big chest or a very athletic build, but the one thing, because he started off as an offensive lineman and they switched him to defensive line in the camp, and as soon as he switched to defensive line, it went from, man, I'm a little bit sore after these practices, to, oh my god, my neck is going to fall off. I'm running my head into a wall for the last 2.5 hours.
Yeah, let me get off of this. I don't want any more of the smoke. Absolutely.
Kendrick, you can take a break. That's fine.
Don't get a water break, buddy.
Yeah. Followed that one up. We had three. Actually, we had one more in 2021. We had Scott DeHuff, who's a longtime sports producer and also a host of his own podcast. At The Huff Uncensored is his podcast. And then Will Lytle, Hunter Mullen, and Ryan Deacon were our last big quote-unquote interviews. Hunter Mullen, Ryan Deacon, two All-American wrestlers, and Ryan Deacon, a national champion at 157 pounds this year. Those were all fun for me personally because Will and Hunter I obviously went to college with, and then Ryan is a guy that I've wrestled against and had guys that, like, because he went to Legacy and we were with Creek. He played football for the Legacy feeder team. We played them in 8th grade, and that was really cool for me because, one, I didn't think that he would say yes to the interview because he did so many, like right after he won the national championship, and he was more than gracious. And told a lot of fun stories. That was a cool one for me.
That was an awesome, absolutely fun one to listen to. It was, that Deacon one, like I said, it's funny that we played against him. And here he is.
We've beaten a national champion.
Yeah, beaten national champion, exactly.
What are the odds of that? How many people could say that? I don't think that many. Those were the big interviews that we had. The other thing that we tried to do, and we've actually done a lot more than I realized as I was putting this together, we have our friends on quite a bit.
That's honestly, it's been some of my favorite ones.
Me too.
Because we have bouncing personalities, obviously, but our friends all have the exact same way. And when we talk shit and try to analyze sports with others, it's like a butting of heads.
Oh yeah. One of our friends that has been on the show the most is our biggest troll.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Every single tweet, something stupid.
If we mention Indiana sports and or the Miami Heat, it's coming.
It's coming.
That smoke is coming.
Something's coming.
And of course, we were talking about Jeremy Fear, who was our first friend that came on. He did a show way back when at our first Masters tournament, and that was actually the
Masters tournament.
Yeah, and that was the Masters tournament, the first one that was coming off of the COVID pause.
Yeah.
So that was the one in the fall where everybody was all fucked up and didn't know what to do.
Didn't know what to do, didn't know how to bet exactly. Yeah.
So Jeremy's been on 4 times. We had my brother Dom on 3 times. He's been on both bowl pickup shows with Jeremy, and then also for the National Wrestling Tournament. Jonah Mitchell made 3 guest appearances Jonah Starr made one guest appearance so far, but obviously with basketball and college basketball season, that's when Jonah gets really involved.
College basketball and college football, like I said, I know a lot about college basketball, but not as much as Jeremy and Jonah do. And then you know a lot about college football, but Don played it too.
Yeah.
He's currently in it, so it helps.
It does.
These massive matching personalities.
Everybody that we bring on has a reason, and that brings us to our final guest, and a guy that I think will probably end up having the most appearances, depending, just because the sport that we talk about with him kind of has the most big events that come up, and that's Rev Coca, who's been a 5-time guest and done just random segments with MMA for us too. Like when there's been cards where we were like, I have no clue who this guy is, and we go to Rev, he's like, oh yeah, he's 16-3, he's lost to this guy, and this guy. He fought in Metamoris.
I don't.
I'll take your word for it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you know that.
Rev, should I hit the spread on this fight? What are we thinking?
Is this going to go 3 rounds? Like, what are we doing here, Rev?
And that's going to be a lot of fun, too, because he's going to be I do the D2 Football podcast, Top of the Mountain, for D2Football.com, obviously. He's coming on as my co-host for that show, and I'm going to add him in, because he's been looking for other stuff to do. He's been writing for different sites and getting that stuff going, but I think if we get him in front of a camera and get that personality out there a lot, I think people are going to start gravitating towards him. And this year, since I'm going to be doing all of those on Zoom, we're actually going to have the video of the Top of the Mountain podcast on our YouTube channel as well, which you can subscribe to and go watch all these great videos.
Yeah.
Leave a comment on all of them too. Those are the friends that we've brought onto the show. I'm really grateful that they've been able to do that. This is the cooler part about having a smaller independent sports podcast, is that we get to meet other people who have small independent sports podcasts. So the other content creators and guys that we've kind of forged a relationship through the show, Griffin Youngs, co-host of the Tell It As It Is podcast, they've been on one since the Stanley Cup Championship.
Yeah, they're enjoying life right
they
now.
really enjoyed themselves. So they're honestly nobody covers the Avalanche outside of them as well as they do.
Like, we cover the Avalanche a lot, but I mean,
I would listen to their shows before we came on our show.
We cover during the regular season. We cover once a week, like for 10-15 minutes. They cover 2 hours worth of shit every single week.
They just did a full 2-hour free agency prediction show, and then had to turn around after. We'll get to it, but the Avs made some moves, and they had to turn around and do another 50-minute emergency podcast the day after. So they've been gaining a lot of traction. They've earned that. So at Tell It As It Is on social media. And we have also had Christian and Marissa Saez. Marissa is the social media director for DNVR sports accounts. So that's where I know them from school, but we had them on to discuss that as they're moving back to the Denver area. Peter Andrusani of the PTV Sports Network. And then we also had Thomas Stash and Shooter from the We the Thunder show, at PTV Sports and at We the Thunder Pod for those last two.
We've had a few others, but we're just gonna gloss over those. But yeah, we've had a lot of, we've got to interact with a lot of great personalities. There's a reason why sports brings so many people together, because like literally one little tweet you can interact with someone across the world, across the country. Like I said, we've never met the Thunder people. We've never been the closest we've ever been to them was me when I was 80 miles away from them. That's the closest we've ever been to meeting them in person.
Yeah.
We interacted with them on social media, and that's one of the great parts about it, because not only do we get to grow our show, grow other people's shows, and help like see different views. Because like I said, we're biased. That's not a lie. We're not going to blow it here.
They were just as biased right back.
We are a very biased podcast, but so is everybody else, and that's why it's fun to listen to other people's thoughts and opinions on different things and different teams and different avenues. Because, like I said, we can listen to us on and on and on again, but at some point you're like, I want to hear some criticism.
Yeah.
I want to hear something bad about this team. Like,
I don't need to hear.
I know the Avs are fucking Stanley Cup champions, but what are they really going to do in this offseason?
Right.
That kind of thing. It's like that's one of the great parts about it.
It was a lot of fun, and that was the cool format too, because they do a live post game show during the playoffs. So I brought them. I was able to. You're traveling for work, so you weren't able to be there for the interview, but I got to bring them on to our show, and then we both got to go on to their show. And that was that your first live show?
Yeah, first live show.
And that's my first live show since college.
So it's been a while. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun interacting with Chad. It's something honestly we may end up doing some more, especially during the playoffs. on what we were doing. I mean, we waited till after games. Like let's be honest. When it comes to, we may do it for football games, we may do it for, but when it comes to playoffs right now, look, this is off season. Give us a break, right? We're gonna take it nice and easy for the next couple months until football's back. But when come NFL playoffs, NBA, NHL playoffs, when our teams are rolling, we may do some shows like that. Because like I said, I thought that was a brilliant idea, and getting to interact with the chat and feel like these guys are fucking idiots and joking around with them. It was fun.
Yeah, no, it was a great atmosphere, and it was cool too because we slowly got to see the Lightning fans came in with all of the confidence in the world, and we slowly got to see the Avalanche fans or Avalanche players earn their fans' respect over the course. Now, obviously, there's some people that still think the Denver Cheaters, they did it again. The Colorado Avalanche can't win a series without something going their way. Look at this call or that call or this call. All I'm going to say to that is look at any team who's won the Stanley Cup championship, the Stanley Cup, and look at all the lucky breaks that they had.
Everyone's had lucky breaks at some point. It's not even. It's not even close.
No. We recorded a remote podcast featuring the Western Colorado University basketball and wrestling teams, and that was at the High Alpine Brewing Company, who we used to work with. We obviously haven't been doing a ton with them since. We also interviewed Scott, who's the owner of that place. That was a fun one for me, and that was cool to be able to take the show on the road and actually have people come to a separate location to be on the show. And those were guys, I mean, I've interviewed Coach Schaefer, who's the basketball coach, and Coach Pfeiffer before on the radio station. That's a student asking a coach at the school, like, hey, do you want to come on the radio? And they obviously were going to say yes to that.
Yeah.
When I came back with the podcast and sent them the emails, and we were going to get the women's basketball coach on too, but I think they either had a game the night that we went down, or they were trying to avoid. That was like still when you had to avoid all the people that you were in contact with for contact tracing.
Yeah, it was COVID tracing.
Yeah,
it was a little more difficult to get people to get on, but no, I was very grateful for that. Getting to hear their stories, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, interacted with them, like I said, it's a good program over there, absolutely.
Yeah, it was, and they're really cool, good guys, and they're moving in the right direction for both of them. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention, because we kind of talk about this a lot, since we've started this show, we've covered the bubble playoffs, the first COVID year where nobody was able to be in the actual stadium for the NFL, and the Super Bowl during that season, 2 World Series championships, 2 full NBA and NHL playoffs, an actual playoff run with the Bengals going to the Super Bowl, plus the UFC events, the boxing events. Anytime that we've decided, hey, we should do a bonus.
Golf, tennis,
the Masters, Wimbledon.
You could go down a list of things.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a documentary. We talked about The Last Dance a little bit, because that was right when the show was pretty much kicking off.
We'll go into depth about the Avs and Red Wings doc here eventually too. Yeah, it's been it's funny. I gotta see what your thoughts are on this. 100 episodes, only 1 championship. What are the next 100? How many do you think we're going to get?
Niko, you're talking to the guy who went like 30 years without his team actually having a shot at the championship. So I'm gonna say one out of like 6 chances is good for me. I'll take it for now.
I'll say, because that's technically around roughly 2 years. So I'll say 2 championships between 100 to 200.
I think so. I'm
not going to wait for me right now, Jimmy. But
there's a high chance, especially because. I think the Bengals are going to be better. Obviously, the Broncos are going to be better, and who knows what can happen with the one-and-done playoffs or what makes the NFL playoffs interesting. And I really, honestly, this is the most excited and enticed I've been about NHL and NBA free agency because the NHL, my team is trying to look to solidify themselves and become a quote-unquote dynasty, at least a back-to-back. And the Nuggets, they are doing the right things. Like, they're doing good things, but we have not seen this entire team healthy.
No, we have not.
I don't think in our podcast history, except for like 12 games.
The bubbles.
Yeah.
Literally, the bubble was the most healthy this team has been in 2 years. So
I thought MPJ was hurt during that.
He wasn't playing big time minutes. He was a part of the team, but he wasn't playing star position minutes.
That is wild.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like I said, I'm saying 2 because I think the Avs get 1 more, and I would like to think we get another one somehow, whether it be the Nuggets or the Broncos/Bengals or another one. I guarantee you one.
Again,
I think
Again.
Just keep going. Yeah, we don't hate parades.
No,
parades are a good time.
I'm going to be a teacher now, so I'm going to actually have to get somebody to cover my shift during the day of the parade. But I can make it work. Maybe I can swing a field trip and go experience social studies culture to the class parade, to the Avalanche celebration. Last thing I wanted to ask you before we move on is to talk about the actual sports that we have to cover. When we started, because we're basically about 2 years since we had that little meeting where we sat at your kitchen table and we're like, okay, let's call the show The Stallion and the Bus. And we're like, doesn't really roll off the tongue. When we left that meeting, did you think that we would get to 100 episodes?
Yeah, I think I did. I would like to say that I think we'd still be going. Absolutely. I did, like there was times where I need a little bit of a break. You need a little bit of break, and that's how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, like we wash ourselves deep, like it can get annoying. It can be time sensitive.
Yeah.
We're like, man, I just need to fucking sleep this week. Like let me get a breather. That just happens.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'd be sitting here lying to you if I didn't say that I didn't expect this. Like when we get thrown into the bubble and covering both of those at the same time, that just rocket started it.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point we were like, all right, well, let's get in the groove. And once we got in a groove, then we started coming up with ideas for things outside, like whether it be networks or podcast ideas or show ideas or whatever it may be. Just kept circling off, and there was times when we were like, man, I need a break. Okay, let's take a week off. Man, these playoffs are kicking my ass. Or whether it be Tuesday night, 3 a.m. Covering the next playoff game.
The Zoom file got corrupted, so we're gonna have to start this whole thing over. Are you what?
Yeah, it's everything. Like I said, we've been through most everything. So
yeah.
No, but
I did want to, because I guess I said last thing, but the last two things that I have, I'm gonna hold this up and I'll show the camera so that everybody can see it, and then I'll explain.
But yeah, that's for the listeners.
The hardcore bench warmers, the people that have been listening and watching the show are gonna know what that's from. But that's the shirt when we had your brother go out to Cherry Creek High School and took a picture of us sitting on the quote unquote far end of the bench.
Yeah.
We were so funny and artistic and witty. But then the last thing, where I really thought that we at least had some idea of what track we needed to go down. Do you remember that night that your dad sat here while we recorded a full show?
He was like, what the fuck? Redo it, yeah.
He didn't say specifically redo it. He just goes, I don't know who I just listened to.
Doing, yeah.
You guys don't talk like that. You guys should talk the way that you talk, or people aren't going to listen. And he basically gave us the right criticism, and he was blatantly honest with us, and that's helped out, I think, the most because ever since then we've tried to be ourselves. We've been we've been friends and really close friends for a long time. We were talking about it because my dad, uncle, and cousin just had their 50th birthday, and you and your family came, and we were sitting there like 6th grade.
Yeah,
we've known each other, or known of each other longer than that, but 6th grade is when we actually met and were teammates for the first time. And now we're sitting here 2 years post undergrad, working real jobs.
Nearly 2 years past doing the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's grown a lot. Like we've.
You didn't even have this job when we started the show.
I didn't have a job when we started the show.
And now look, you're traveling all over for USA Taekwondo, and I've now made a career change. I made a career shift. So 100 episodes down. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it as much as we had. And like Niko said, there's going to be a lot more stuff in between 100 and 200, and then when we get 300, it's going to be even more. But as we continue to tell your friends.
Jimmy will have a full mustache like myself. So.
I could grow one like that. I just don't.
Yeah, I was clean shaved when we first started. Now I got the stash rolling, man. Yeah, no, it's been, like I said, it feels like it's not been long, but then again, at the same time, you think once a week, more than once a week for 100 weeks.
When
it's crazy.
When I go on Anchor now and I try and check analytics of stuff, I have to click back 8 pages to get to episode 1.
Episode 1, yeah, it's a lot of stuff that have gone into that.
We appreciate you guys, and it couldn't be possible without you all. So now that we've This is gonna go a little bit over our normal 2-hour limit that we set for
100th
ourselves.
Episodes,
It's the 100th episode. We have a little bit. We had, and also we were talking about it. We're getting things set up behind the scenes, and you're gonna see Start Bench Cut on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're starting to sweat too, so that's why. So I swear we don't put makeup on.
No, it's not foundation. That's just my natural oils. It's the one good thing about bringing the old shirt. Let's get into the Start Bench Cut.
It's a 100th episode, spectacular, as we'll call it, or whatever.
We've been putting extravaganza on a lot of stuff.
Extravaganza, spectacular, whatever you want to call it. This is gonna be a tough one. A tough one. Start Bench Cut. The 3 top interviews. Chris, Louis, Kendrick Green. That's tough, I know. Start Bench Cut. Let me hear what you got.
I'm gonna say.
And look, this ain't nothing.
No, this isn't about the person. Yeah,
we love all that, but you know, we gotta cut down to the deep stuff here.
You'll hear it in my explanation as to why, but I'm gonna start the Louis interview.
Yeah, that made sense. I figured you'd do that.
I'm going to bench the Birdman interview, and I'm gonna cut the Kendrick interview, and I do it in that order because I think the Louis interview was having a world champion, and then we were way more comfortable, and we, even though it was over Zoom, we were able to kind of fire in questions that we didn't necessarily plan. He was really awesome about answering all of them. I benched the Birdman interview because, like we said, I'd rather get him on now when we have like all of the equipment, because remember we recorded that on 2 mics. We didn't even have the GoPro. We didn't even have the GoPro set up for video. We had to pass mics around. I had the 2 mic stands and 2 mics because we didn't buy the extra. We had 4 ports in this, but we only had the 2 microphones, and I had to set them up and be like telling your dad
to pass the mic,
and the 6'11", 7-foot world champion in the NBA. Like, can you just bend over and
pass the mic and talk?
Bend your face down in front of the mic, Chris. Come on, aren't you you're a pro athlete? So I'd like to get a better setup interview done with them, but they were still. I mean, the stories in that one are awesome. I forgot about the Anderson story where you misspelled his last name on the
Dallas
on the shirt. Yeah,
and my dad's almost started a fight with the people in Dallas.
Yeah. Oh,
I love that Dallas arena. I went back to it when I was working in Dallas. But yeah, I always have great memories of that building.
And I cut the Kendrick interview because Kendrick, you're my boy, and I love you, and I wish you nothing. Well, I wish you nothing but success. You're just not a world champion.
I'm gonna switch it. Because I don't want to say the same thing as you. I'll do Chris. I'm benching Louis. I'm cutting Kendrick. I love the Kendrick Green one. I'm not going to shoot any smoke on that because they say he's
come back on the show if you want.
He's a current player. He's
got plenty of time to put in his work.
Yeah, he's got a ways to go. In 5 to 10 years, we may be like, man, that was fuck. We got him before he started, but we were talking about 2 world champions. So that's why. And look, because I have more of a relationship with Chris, I'll put that one first. Louis, I have a good relationship with too. And Louis was, like I said, we knew a lot more what we were doing with Louis. Chris was kind of just a shit show because it was him. And because that's who we were.
Chris was the 11th. I went back and counted it out total. Like, not count. I know that it doesn't count as the 11th episode, but that's our 11th actual podcast that you and I did.
Yeah, that was.
So we probably, if we didn't get the talking to from your dad after, I think it was episode 5. So what people should do if you want to do this, listen to the intro of episode 4 and like the first 15 minutes.
What you should do is tag put the first episode ever, put that in the tagline, because I want to listen to what it sounds like, because I know it sounds terrible.
Oh, I can't listen to episode 1.
I hate listening to us in general, because you know me, I hate my voice, and I hate listening to it, even after 100 episodes. I only listen to it if I'm like, oh, let me listen to what dumbassery I said this time.
The only good thing that I could say about going back and listening to episode 1 is at least we were 23 when we started it, because I don't have to go and listen to like my high voice. Yeah, but honestly, it's the same. Remember when you used to watch videos of yourself as a younger kid and you talk, you're like, oh my god, I used to have that high of a voice. It's just Well, look, I listened back to it today because I was trying to figure out what we talked about. So I was going to put it in the notes, and I was like, this is going to be something different. And it took me 6 minutes. I said, Niko Bryant's going to be my co-host, and you'll hear from him in a second. But then I went into a 6-minute long rant as to why it was center of attention, and now it's far under the bench, and why Niko is here. So it's rough. I would listen to the first 15 minutes of episode 4 and then the first 15 minutes of episode 5, because episode 4 is the way that our old format was, and episode 5 was when Niko's dad said, trash that shit and do it again.
Episode 4, we pull up like fucking hundreds of stats. We were like, this guy's fucking, OPR is really fucking good.
Pulling out random acronyms of stats that really don't mean anything.
And we only pull up stats when we're trying to prove a point now. Yeah. And because most of the stats we kind of just like remember now, or we see come across our timeline.
Well, when we debated sports growing up, we never really put in stats. It was just as much feeling.
This is what my thoughts are, and your thoughts are more than likely wrong. But since we have a lot of same thoughts, it works out.
Yeah. No, it's cool that we made it this far. It's a milestone. We'll come up on the 2-year milestone, which will be even bigger. But it's been a crazy ride. I gotta thank you because you came on to the show from that conversation that we had in the garage at my grad party where you're like, were you serious about needing a co-host?
Looking for a co-host?
And from the meeting that we had where we had all the bad names for the show and figuring our way through all of this, it's been 100 episodes
and look, we did do 100 episodes. There's still a lot of rooms to grow. Obviously, the next 100, we work right now is out my ass. Jimmy's starting a new job, and it's been a lot, but we're going to work on giving possibly a new home. That's all I'll say. A new home to listen to our stuff on. That's all I'll say. I'm not gonna say names because we don't know yet. I'll just say, as Pat McAfee says, things are happening. Things are moving. Things are moving over here.
Yin's gonna want to pay attention.
You're gonna want to pay attention.
Yin's are gonna want to.
So that's all I'll say. Like I said, we'll hopefully get some more working on more merch because we have a brand new logo that's less than a year old.
I think we need some stickers, and I think we need some shirts.
Yeah, we'll figure all that out eventually. We gotta get past my hot season, which I'm on right now, and then Jimmy, his first wave of dealing with middle schoolers.
By the time I get to I think
dealing with middle schoolers from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
When does your hot season slow down?
Hot season, like end of or beginning of September.
Okay, so like when I'm getting to fall break,
that's
when we can start thinking about all that stuff. But it's been fun. Episode 100 at FEOTV Pod, all social media. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell a friend to check out the show. And be on the lookout for all the stuff that we have going on in the background. But for myself, Jimmy Pilato, my co-host, Niko Bryant, this has been episode 100 of the Far Under the Bench podcast. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you next week.
Peace!